The pool was gone by Saturday afternoon. Not drained, not covered. Gone, equipment removed, basin filled, travertine decking extended clean across the space where 40,000 gallons of water had been, as though the pool had never existed at all. Sandra had been planning her daughter's birthday party for 6 weeks, 40 kids, inflatable flamingos, a playlist someone's older brother had curated, invitations sent to every child in the 3rd grade. The party was Sunday. I had known about it since Tuesday, when Sandra's daughter Lily had knocked on my door, alone, 8 years old, with a handwritten guest list and a marker, and asked me, with the specific earnestness of a child who has been told something is already decided, if she could decorate the pool area Friday night. I had looked at that guest list for a long time. Then I had called Marcus, my contractor, and told him to move the timeline up. Sandra arrived at my door Sunday morning at 9:47. 40 kids were already gathering across the street in various states of swimwear, inflatable accessories, and pre-party energy. She was holding a cake carrier in one hand and her phone in the other, and she had the expression of a woman who had just walked through my side gate and found a completed travertine patio where she had been expecting a pool. She looked at me for a long time. Then she called 911. The officer who responded looked at the patio, looked at the permit I was already holding, looked at Sandra pointing at the space where the water used to be, and said the 6 words that ended that particular conversation. "This is his property, ma'am." What happened after those 6 words, what Sandra lost in the weeks that followed, what it cost her, what she could not give back to the 40 children standing across the street in their swimsuits, none of that was about the pool. The pool was just the thing she had decided belonged to her. What she had never understood, across 3 years of treating my property like a public amenity, was who she had been treating it that way in front of. My name is Elliot Marsh, 47 years old, 16 years as a licensed landscape architect, the last 9 running my own firm. I design outdoor spaces for a living. I understand what property is, what it requires, what it costs to build and maintain and protect, and what it means when someone treats something you have built with care as though it belongs to everyone. My wife Diana is a family law attorney. She has spent 18 years in courtrooms, mediations, and negotiations, dealing with people who disagree about what is theirs. She understands, with professional depth, the specific human capacity for rewriting ownership, for looking at something that belongs to someone else and deciding, gradually and then completely, that a right to it has been established by use. Sandra Kowalski had been our neighbor for 3 years. She lived directly across from us in Sycamore Glen, a 64-home HOA outside Raleigh, North Carolina. 42 years old, former event planner, now what she described as a community experience curator, which appeared to mean she organized neighborhood events, maintained strong opinions about how shared spaces should be used, and had a particular talent for treating the distinction between shared and private as a flexible concept when flexibility served her. She was not a malicious person. This is important to say and to mean, because the story of what happened is not a story about malice. It is a story about a person who built a version of reality in which something that did not belong to her became, in her own understanding, something that did, and about what happens when that reality meets the person who actually owns the thing. Our pool had been installed 2 years before Sandra moved in. A 38-foot freeform design, my professional work, my own hands in the design process, a project I had spent 4 months on from concept to completion. Diana had specified the travertine decking. I had specified the grotto feature in the shallow end, a small waterfall element that our daughter Nora, then 7, had asked for, and that I had made work structurally and aesthetically. The landscaping surrounding the pool was among the best work I had ever done for myself. I gave my own property the same standard I gave my highest-paying clients. It was beautiful. I knew it was beautiful because I had made it that way. Sandra moved in across the street in what she described, at the first neighborhood gathering she attended, as the best decision she had ever made. She said she had fallen in love with the neighborhood from the listing photographs. She said it felt like a community that understood what living well meant. She looked at our pool from across the street with an expression I recognized from client consultations, the expression of someone who has seen something they want to be near. The first incident happened 6 weeks after she moved in. Her daughter Lily, then 5, appeared in our backyard on a Saturday afternoon. Nora was in the pool. Diana was on the deck. Sandra was not with Lily. Lily had apparently opened our gate herself, crossed our yard, and entered the pool area because she had seen Nora from somewhere and decided to join her. Diana called me out from my office. I walked Lily home. Sandra answered the door, looked at Lily, looked at me, and said, "Oh, she found a friend. That's so sweet." I said it was also trespassing, gently, and asked Sandra to make sure Lily didn't come over without asking first. Sandra said, of course, she was so sorry, Lily was so independent, you know how kids are. I began the documentation that week, not because one incident required a log, because 16 years of landscape architecture had taught me that the first time something happens without consequence is the beginning of a pattern, and the pattern is harder to address than the first incident. Over the following 2 years and 9 months, I made 43 entries. The pattern was not aggressive, it was social. Sandra was an event planner by training, and she understood, better than most people, how to make things feel normal through repetition and warmth. The second incident was a planned playdate. Sandra had texted Diana asking if Lily could come swim with Nora, and Diana had said yes, because she is a kind person, and Lily was 5, and it seemed like a reasonable thing. The third incident was Sandra coming with Lily, which had not been part of the discussion, but which felt difficult to object to once she was in the backyard with her magazine and her iced tea. By incident 8, Sandra had a usual chair on our pool deck, not formally, not by invitation, but she had sat in the same chair enough times that she oriented to it automatically when she came through the gate. By incident 14, she was bringing friends, women she knew from her daughter's school, from the neighborhood, from what she described as her wellness circle. They came in 2s and 3s, always with children, always with the pleasant assumption that the pool was available, because it had always been available before when they had asked, or when Sandra had said it was fine. Sandra had been telling people the pool was available. I did not know this fully until Nora told me. She was 9 by then, and she had the specific social awareness of a child who notices what adults say to each other. She told me at dinner one evening that Lily had told her that Lily's mom had said we had a community pool and that lots of kids from school could come use it. Community pool. I set my fork down and looked at Diana across the table. Diana looked back with the expression she uses when a fact has confirmed something she had already been calculating. I sent Sandra, the first certified letter at the 20-month mark. Formal, factual, no hostility. Documented 19 incidents. Stated that the pool was private property, that access required explicit permission from Diana or myself on each occasion, that Sandra had been representing the pool to others as a community resource without any authority to do so, and that further unauthorized entries or unauthorized representations would be addressed through legal channels. Sandra appeared at our door 4 days later. She had clearly spent those 4 days preparing a response. She stood on our porch and delivered it with the polish of a former event planner who understood presentation. She talked about community, about children, about the relationships she had built in the neighborhood partly through the social occasions our pool had made possible. She said she had not meant any harm. She said she had believed we were happy to share. Diana, standing beside me, said, "Sandra, Elliot sent you a certified letter, you signed for it. That letter listed 19 incidents and asked you explicitly to stop. Did you read it?" Sandra said yes. Diana said, "Then you understand that we are not happy to share and that what you've been doing is not sharing. It's using someone else's property without their consent and telling other people that consent exists when it doesn't." Sandra's expression shifted. The polish slipped slightly. Underneath, it was something that looked like a person encountering, possibly for the first time, a version of events that did not accommodate the story she had been living inside. She said she would stop. She apologized. She left. The incidents did not stop. They became more careful, less frequent, better timed, smaller groups, but the underlying behavior continued because the underlying belief had not changed. Sandra still believed, at some structural level of her understanding, that the pool was accessible, that the letter and Diana's speech were friction to be managed, not a boundary to be respected. Entry 26 was a school holiday Tuesday. I counted 7 children I did not recognize in the pool when I came home at lunch for a site visit. Sandra was on the deck with 2 women I had never met. She looked up when I came through the gate, said, "Hi, Elliot," with the specific casualness of a person who has decided that normalcy is a defense, and introduced the women by first name. I asked everyone to leave. Sandra gathered the children with the practiced efficiency of an event planner managing a crowd. She apologized as she left. She apologized the way she always apologized, specifically, warmly, and without any apparent intention of changing her behavior. I sent a second certified letter the following week, more comprehensive than the first. 26 documented incidents, an explicit statement that Sandra had been representing the pool as a community amenity to people who had not met us and had no way to know otherwise. A formal demand that this representation cease. A statement that I was consulting with a property attorney regarding the misrepresentation specifically. I was not bluffing. Diana had already reviewed the legal question, misrepresenting access rights to third parties, inducing those third parties to trespass on private property. There was potential civil exposure there, though the damages would be modest. More importantly, the misrepresentation was a behavioral pattern that compounded the trespass pattern and made the community-wide impact significantly larger than just one neighbor's unauthorized visits. Sandra signed for the letter, did not respond in writing, did not come to our door. The incidents continued. Entry 31, Entry 35, Entry 38, a Saturday afternoon in June, 11 children, 3 adults, a speaker someone had brought, and a cooler that was not ours staged beside our outdoor bar cart. I had come home early from a site visit because Diana had texted me that it looked like a party. It looked like a party because it was a party, in my backyard, that I had not been invited to. I stood at the gate for a moment, then I walked through. Sandra was in my chair, the chair she had been orienting to for 2 years. She looked up with the specific expression of a person who has been surprised but is deciding not to show it. "Elliot," she said, "we were just. Everyone needs to leave now," I said, "including you." She gathered people. It took 8 minutes. The last adult out, a woman I had never seen before, carrying 2 wet towels that belonged to us, said to Sandra as she passed through the gate, "I thought you said this was fine." I caught Sandra's eye. She did not say anything. She left. I closed the gate, stood in my backyard looking at the displaced furniture, the cooler, the speaker cord still connected to someone's phone that had been left on the deck. The water was disturbed, the surface still moving from 11 children who had spent their afternoon in a pool that had never been theirs to use. I went inside, sat at the kitchen table, looked at the incident log, 38 entries, 29 months, 2 certified letters, and a woman who had responded to every intervention by waiting for things to normalize and then resuming. Diana came in from her office at 6. I told her what I had found. She sat down across from me. She did not say anything immediately. She was doing the thing she did when she was thinking through a legal strategy, running the variables, assessing the positions, finding the point where the facts produced an outcome rather than a continuation. "You've been thinking about the pool," she said. "For 3 months," I said. "Removal or decommission?" "Full removal, infill, extend the travertine, plant the border properly. No basin, no equipment, no feature for anyone to misrepresent as accessible." Diana was quiet for a moment. "That's permanent." "Yes. You'll lose the investment." "I'll lose less than I've lost in 3 years of this." She looked at me. "What's the timeline?" "Marcus can have his crew ready in 2 weeks. The travertine match is straightforward. I have the remaining original material in storage. The infill and compaction is 3 days, extension is 2 more, planting the new border is 1. Total, 6 days of active work. And Sandra. She finds out when it's done. Diana thought about this. What's she planning? I told her about Lily's guest list, the Sunday party, the 40 children. Diana looked at the table for a moment, then she looked up. She gave her daughter permission to invite 40 children to your pool. Yes. After 2 certified letters and 38 documented incidents. Yes. Diana was very still for a moment. The specific stillness of a family law attorney who has spent 18 years in rooms where people do not understand the consequences of their choices until those consequences are fully manifest. Move the timeline up, she said. I already called Marcus. She nodded once. Document everything, the guest list, Lily's visit, the timeline. I'm writing it now. She stood up. I'll review the CC and RS tonight. I had already reviewed them. No provision requiring pool maintenance. No provision restricting removal. No provision granting any homeowner access to another homeowner's private amenity. Diana reviewed them anyway because she is thorough and because in 18 years of family law, she had learned that the cases you lose are always the ones where you assumed rather than verified. She confirmed my reading at breakfast the next morning. Clean, she said. Nothing restricts removal. I'm notifying the HOA Thursday, I said. Brief and factual, she said. No explanation beyond maintenance decision. I sent the notice Thursday, addressed to the board president, a woman named Caroline Fisk, who had been running our HOA for 6 years with the steady, organized competence of someone who had seen every kind of neighbor dispute and was not easily rattled. Brief, formal, informing the board that I would be removing my residential pool the following week for property modification purposes and extending the existing deck surface. No request for approval. Notification only. I did not notify Sandra. I had notified her twice, in certified letters, that the pool was private and that her use of it was unauthorized. She had signed for both. What remained to be communicated was not something words could convey to a person who had decided words were manageable. Marcus and his crew arrived Monday morning. I had taken the week off, partial office coverage, delegated site visits to my senior associate. I was going to be present for every day of this work. The pool equipment was disconnected Monday afternoon. Pump, heater, filtration system, automated chemistry management, disconnected, removed, staged for sale. The grotto waterfall that I had built for Nora, that she had asked for when she was 7 and that I had made work because she had asked, I sat with that decision for a long time. In the end, the stonework was incorporated into the new planting border. It was not gone. It was transformed. The infill began Tuesday. Compacted aggregate base first, then structural fill in lifts, compacted between each layer. I specified the compaction myself, the way I specified everything on my own property. The basin disappeared under material that would support the travertine extension cleanly and permanently. Wednesday, the travertine work began. I had the remaining original material from the installation stored properly because I do not discard useful things. The match was precise. By Thursday afternoon, the extended deck surface was continuous, clean, no seam visible between the original installation and the new section. Friday, the border planting went in. I had been thinking about this design for 3 months. New plant selection, properly specified for the Raleigh climate, arranged with the compositional eye I applied to client projects. When Marcus's crew finished Friday afternoon and I stood at the edge of what had been the pool deck. The space looked designed, not like a removal, like a decision made by a landscape architect who had reconsidered how the space should be used. It was better than the pool. I had not expected to feel that, but it was true. Diana came home Friday evening. She stood at the back door and looked at the new patio in the late afternoon light. Elliot, she said. Yes, this is beautiful. I know. She came outside. We stood together looking at it. The travertine extended smoothly across the new space. The planting border was exactly right. The plant selection, the spacing, the way the arrangement drew the eye through the space. The stonework from the grotto was incorporated naturally into a new feature in the far corner. "She's going to come over tomorrow," Diana said. "I know. 40 kids in swimsuits across the street. I know. Are you ready?" I looked at the space where the pool had been, at the continuous, professionally executed, completely documented transformation of private property that I had every right to make. "Yes," I said. Sunday morning, 9:47. The knock was energetic, the knock of a woman who has been moving quickly and has arrived at a door with momentum. I opened it. Sandra was holding a cake carrier, a large one, 3 tiers visible through the clear lid, decorated with pool-themed fondant that someone had spent real time on. Her phone was in her other hand, screen lit. Behind her, across the street, I could see the beginning of 40 children assembling in various states of swimwear. She looked at me, then past me, toward the back of the house. She had clearly already been through the side gate because her expression was not the expression of someone who had not yet seen the patio. "Where is the pool?" she said. "It's been removed." She stared at me. "When?" "This week, permitted work, fully documented, compliant with all applicable codes and HOA regulations." She looked at her phone, at the children across the street. "You knew about Lily's party." "Lily came to my door Tuesday with a guest list." "Yes." "And she stopped. She was doing the calculation. The one she should have done 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 18 months ago when the first certified letter arrived. The calculation that accounts for who the other person actually is and what they are actually capable of doing in response to 3 years of ignored boundaries." "Sandra," I said, "I have 43 documented incidents. I have sent you 2 certified letters. I have asked you in person, multiple times, to stop. You have been telling people, parents of children, families I have never met, that this pool was available for use. And your daughter came to my door this week with a guest list for a party at my property that you had planned without my knowledge or permission." She was very still. "The pool is gone. It was my pool, on my property, and I exercised my right to remove it. What you told 40 families this morning is not something I can fix for you." She pulled out her phone. She called 911. I went inside and retrieved the documentation folder from the kitchen counter where I had staged it that morning. The permit for the pool removal, the CC&R excerpt, the notification to the HOA, the incident log, the 2 certified letters with Sandra's signatures, a photograph of Lily's guest list, which I had taken when she showed it to me. Officer Gaines arrived at 10:17. He was thorough, unhurried, and had the specific quality of a law enforcement officer who had attended enough neighbor disputes to read their shape before anyone finished explaining. He looked at the patio. He looked at the permit. He looked at the CC&R excerpt. He reviewed the HOA notification. He looked at Sandra. "Ma'am, is this the neighbor's private property?" The pool was a community resource. "Is this his private property?" A pause. "Yes." "Did he have HOA approval for this modification?" "He notified the HOA. He didn't get approval." "Let me look at this." He reviewed Caroline Fisk's board receipt of my notification, which I had obtained Thursday. "Read it." The board acknowledged the notification. No restriction was identified. He handed it back. "Ma'am, there's nothing actionable here. This is private property, and the modification is documented and compliant." Sandra looked at the 40 children across the street. She looked at the cake carrier in her hand. She looked at the patio. She called the officer's supervisor. The supervisor arrived at 10:44, reviewed the same documents, said the same thing, recommended Sandra contact a civil attorney if she believed there was a grievance. Both officers left. Sandra stood in my driveway for a moment. The children across the street had grown quieter. Some of them had put down their inflatable items. Parents had appeared, phones in hand, the gathering beginning to take on the specific awkward quality of an event that has lost its center. Sandra looked at me. The expression she had, I want to be precise about this, was not anger. It was something more complicated. It was the expression of a person standing at the full revealed cost of a thing they had been building for 3 years without understanding what they were building toward. I have to go tell them, she said, not to me specifically, Maury to the air. Yes, I said. She crossed the street. I watched from my front porch as she spoke to the assembled parents. I could not hear the words. I could see the responses, the gradual dispersal, the disappointed children, the parents with that particular expression of adults who have brought their children somewhere that has not materialized as promised and are managing the disappointment while also beginning to wonder about the context they had not been given. Lily sat on the front steps of Sandra's house with her uninflated floats and her pool-themed birthday cake and watched the guests leave with the specific heartbreak of an 8-year-old for whom an important day has not gone as it was supposed to. I did not feel good about that part. I want to say that clearly. Lily was 8 years old. She had been handed a situation by the adults around her that she had no capacity to understand or control. Her birthday party had been planned, from the beginning, on a foundation that had no right to exist. That was not her doing. But it also was not mine. Diana came to stand beside me on the porch. She had been watching through the front window. "How are you?" she said. "I feel bad about Lily," I said. "I know. She didn't do anything wrong." "No, she didn't." We watched the street clear. Sandra went inside with the cake. Lily followed her. The last few parents drove away. The street was quiet. Caroline Fisk called me that afternoon. Her voice had the measured quality of someone who has processed a situation and arrived at a clear position. "I heard what happened this morning," she said. "It was significant," I said. "I have 3 phone calls from residents asking about the pool removal. Sandra has apparently been telling people for some time that the pool was a neighborhood resource. I know, I documented it. I have 2 certified letters to her addressing the misrepresentation specifically." A pause. "Elliot, I need to ask you something directly." "Go ahead." "In 3 years, did you ever invite Sandra or her daughter to use the pool in a way that could have been reasonably interpreted as an open-ended permission?" I thought about this carefully. Diana invited Lily on one occasion, the second incident in my log. It was a one-time, explicitly bounded invitation. No other invitation was ever extended. Every subsequent use was unauthorized. And Sandra knew this. She received 2 certified letters saying exactly that. She signed for both. Caroline was quiet for a moment. "I'm calling an HOA meeting, not because there's a board action to take. I've reviewed the CC and RS, and your removal is fully within your rights. But the membership deserves accurate information about what has been represented to them regarding your property." "I agree," I said. "I'll attend and present the documentation." "Good, one more thing," she paused. "The party this morning, how many children?" "Approximately 40, 3rd grade class, from what I understand." Another pause. Sandra told the families that she had arranged pool access for an end-of-year celebration. She told them she had arranged it. "Yes." I looked out at the street. Quiet now, the last car long gone. "Caroline, those families sent their children to a party based on a representation Sandra had no authority to make. They deserve to know that." "Yes," Caroline said, "they do." The HOA meeting was the following Thursday. 41 of 64 homeowners attended, the highest turnout in 5 years, according to Caroline, who had checked. Sandra came. She sat in the 3rd row with her husband Kevin, who had been notably absent from every previous chapter of this situation, and who sat beside her with the specific posture of a man who has recently been given information about his wife's activities that he had not previously possessed. Caroline opened formally, minutes documented, proper procedure, then she gave me the floor. I did not present a case, I presented a record. The incident log, 43 entries. I read 20 of them aloud with dates and descriptions in the measured voice I used for client presentations. No emotion, no editorializing, just documented fact in sequence. The 2 certified letters, Sandra's signatures, the dates. Caroline had obtained, through her own inquiry, written statements from 4 families who had been told by Sandra that the pool was a neighborhood amenity available for community use. She read those statements into the meeting record. Each one described what Sandra had told them. Each one was from a family who had believed, in good faith, that the representation was accurate. I put the photographs of the removed pool, the completed patio, the extension, the planting on the screen. My design work, my contractor's execution, my permitted modification of my private property. I exercised my right as a property owner to remove a feature from my own property, I said. I did this because 3 years of documented unauthorized use, 2 certified letters, and ongoing misrepresentation to community members had produced no change. The removal was not punitive. It was structural. It removed a feature that had been treated as a public amenity without any authority for that treatment. I paused. I want to be clear about one thing. Every family who was told this pool was available for community use was told something untrue, not because they misunderstood, because they were given inaccurate information by someone who did not have the right to give it. I am not responsible for what they were told. I am responsible for my property, which I have managed lawfully throughout. The room was very quiet. Caroline asked Sandra whether she had received the certified letters. Sandra said yes. Caroline asked whether she had told community members the pool was available as a neighborhood amenity. A long pause. Then Sandra said she had described it as something neighbors could enjoy. Caroline asked what authority she had to describe someone else's private pool that way. Sandra did not have a clean answer to this. Caroline called the vote. Formal finding that the pool removal was within the homeowner's rights, that no HOA standards had been violated, and that the board formally notified all membership that private pools within the community were not community amenities, and that representations to that effect by any individual homeowner carried no authority. 4-0, Sandra's single potential ally on the board, a man named David Park who had 2 children and had attended the cancelled party with his family, had recused himself. He told me afterward, in the parking lot, that he had believed Sandra when she said the pool was a community resource, had brought his children to events there twice, and that learning the actual situation had been, and this was his word, clarifying. Kevin Kowalski was in the parking lot when I came out. Sandra was still inside, speaking with Caroline. Kevin was standing by their car with his hands in his jacket pockets and the expression of a man who has had a difficult week. He said, "I didn't know about the letters." "I know. I knew she'd had people over to the pool. She told me you were friendly about it." I sent 2 certified letters over 29 months, documenting that we were not friendly about it. He looked at his shoes. "She didn't tell me." He looked up. "The party. I didn't know about the party until 3 days before, and I asked her if she'd checked with you, and she said it was taken care of." "It wasn't." "No," he was quiet for a moment. "Lily doesn't fully understand what happened. Sandra told her there was a problem with the pool equipment." A pause. "She's 8. "I know," I said. "I'm sorry Lily's birthday was affected. She didn't do anything wrong." Kevin looked at me for a long time. "I'm going to make sure she has a proper party," he said, "at a venue, properly." "Good," I said. He shook my hand, got in the car. Diana was waiting by our vehicle. She looked at my face. Kevin apologized. He didn't know about the letters. He's going to make sure Lily gets a proper party. Diana nodded. Sandra still inside with Caroline. We drove home. The fallout accumulated over the following weeks in the specific way community-wide information accumulates, not dramatically, but through the quiet adjustments of 41 families processing a corrected understanding of what they had been told and what was true. 4 families whose children had been regular guests at Sandra's pool events, my pool events, as they understood it, reached out to us directly. All 4 said they had not known. All 4 were embarrassed in the way people are embarrassed when they realize they acted on false information. Diana spoke to 2 of them at length. I spoke to the others. Nobody was hostile. They had been misled, and they knew it. Sandra's standing in the neighborhood shifted, not through any organized response, through the specific, quiet redistribution of trust that happens when a community discovers that someone has been misrepresenting what belongs to them. The wellness circle she had been hosting dispersed. The school-parent connections she had built partly around the social context of pool gatherings became more formal, more distant. She did not speak to us for 6 weeks. When she did, it was a Sunday morning, 8 weeks after the HOA meeting. She came to our door alone. Kevin was not with her. She was not holding anything. She stood on the porch and said she wanted to apologize, not the way she had apologized before, not the warm, polished apology of a former event planner managing a situation. This was slower, less composed, the apology of a person who has had weeks to think about what they did and has arrived at a clear-eyed understanding of it. She said she knew she had been wrong, not just about the pool, about the story she had told herself and others about the pool, about the gradual process by which she had turned something that wasn't hers into something she felt entitled to share. She said she did not expect us to forgive her. She said she wanted us to know she understood what she had done. I accepted the apology. Diana, standing beside me, accepted it too. Sandra left. We watched her cross the street and go inside. Diana looked at me. Do you believe her? Yes, I said. I think she's been living with this for 8 weeks, and I think what she said was real. What do you want to do? I looked at the street. Quiet Sunday morning, the neighborhood doing its Sunday things, a dog walker, a jogger, 2 children on bikes. The ordinary life of a community that had processed something significant and continued. Nothing, I said. She apologized. That's enough. Nora was at her friend's house that day. She was 11 now, old enough to understand most of what had happened, young enough that I had tried to manage how much of it she carried. She knew the pool was gone. She knew why, in the version I had told her, that we had decided to change the backyard and make something new. She had stood at the back door the Friday evening when the work was done and looked at the new patio for a long time. It's pretty, she had said. Yes, I had said. Is it because of the kids who kept coming over? 11 years old, she had known more than I had managed. That was part of it, I said. She had looked at the space for another moment. I liked the grotto, she said, the waterfall part. I kept the stones, I said. Look. She had looked at the new planting border, at the stonework incorporated into the far corner feature. She had walked over and looked at it closely. You kept it, she said. I kept what I could, I said. She had nodded and gone inside for dinner. The patio became what I had designed it to be, a proper outdoor living space, proportioned correctly, planted carefully, used by our family on the terms we set. Diana read there on Sunday afternoons. I worked design problems there in the evenings when the weather was right. Nora had her friends over in the way that feels natural and easy when the space is yours and the terms are clear. Nobody came through the gate uninvited. I stood in the space one evening in early fall, the Raleigh air finally cooling, the light going long and golden across the travertine. I had a drink and no particular agenda and was doing what landscape architects do when they stand in a space they have made, assessing it, checking the proportions, checking the plant establishment, checking whether the thing I had designed was becoming what I had intended. It was. Diana came out and stood beside me. The evening was quiet. Do you miss the pool? She said. I thought about it, about the 14 months of design and construction, about Nora's grotto, about the chemistry balance I had maintained for 3 years, about the 40,000 gallons that had been there and were gone. I miss what it was supposed to be, I said. I don't miss what it became. Diana was quiet for a moment. Is there a version of this where you build another one somewhere down the road? I looked at the space, at the stonework in the corner, the only piece of the original pool that remained, at the travertine extending smoothly where the water used to be. Maybe, I said, when it would be ours again from the beginning. She nodded, picked up her book from the table where she'd left it. I stayed outside until the light was fully gone. Then I went inside and made dinner and lived the specific ordinary life of a person whose property is finally, fully, completely their own. Everything was exactly where it was supposed to be. Framed thumbnail text. She planned a party for 40 kids at my pool. I removed it first.